What's up, Mortgage Coach community? I am pumped. It's been way too long since I've interviewed Tim Braheem, one of the industry's most prolific and successful mortgage producers. I always see Tim's face when he gets talked about like that, and he never likes it. But you still go down in record of all the friends that I have had as when we were top producers, that you were the best loan officer of all of us. So what's up, my brother?
Thank you. And yeah, I'm working on taking all that kind of stuff in and owning it and like not deflecting it. Things are good right now, man. I mean, there's a lot happening. There's a lot of movement. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so for you new loan officers, this guy used to be one of the most successful from a production standpoint. The reason why I always give him that credit of being the best is because most loan officers are really high DIs and not, it's pretty unusual that you find someone that kills it. And not only are they, high enough DI to be a great salesperson, but they really put systems and processes and things together. And he not only did that for his own practice, but he created a platform called Loan Toolbox that really helped professionalize the mortgage industry. So, bro, thank you for your service, new loan officer.
Can I comment on that? Like, I want to comment on that real quick because, you use the term DI, disc assessment. I'm sure that I have to assume that a lot of the people that are watching know what that is because you're bringing it up and your audience. Just so you know, man, it's actually an interesting thing that we talk a lot about on retreat with my clients when we go over the topic is I used to be a high D, high C, and my eye was in my shoe. I mean, right. I had the lowest eye, man, like it was way down. I was super introverted. And that DC was that driver that also had the ability to get into the granular systematic details of things. Now my C is much, much lower. It's actually below the mid-level. It's about 4 on the scale of 1 to 10, and my eye's like an 8. So I've changed a lot over the years, and people always wonder about that. Like, can you change your personality? The answer is you can. Nobody else can change it for you. But if you really want to work on things to cultivate an aspect of your personality, an archetype of your personality, it can be done. And I know from personal experience.
So boy, we could just totally focus on that for an hour,
yeah,
and have a lot of fun doing it. So and maybe guys, we're gonna have Tim more in the Mortgage Coach community and the Sales Boomerang community this year. But for now, I really want to focus on what Tim Braheem thinks should be the #1 priority to win in 2023. This is not just like any other year. Tim, I want to say something before you share your first priority. I truly think this is a seismic shift in the industry because for our whole career in the business, rates have gone down, and now they've gone down to the 2s. For most of our career, technology was constantly an enabler to, do more, faster, better, which that still is. I mean, that wave is still going. But now that rates went down so low and that we had 2 back-to-back years that were over 4 trillion, we've got 80% of loans are less than 4%. And 63% of loans in America are start with a 2 or a 3. So I really believe that we're in a new era, which I'm coining as, the data-driven advice era. Like, it's no longer going to be a good idea to be a mortgage coach or to deliver, have a data-driven conversation with the consumer. It's going to be like a requirement for realtors and loan officers to upgrade their advice game. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, yes. I mean, it's always been, this is a story we've been telling for 25 years, you and I, that the loan originator that has the wisdom and can provide good advice is, going to be ultimately the one that wins. But I think that, to point blank answer your question, I think that right now the market is just about relationships. Now, underneath that are a whole myriad of different subtopics. I mean, there's a lot of strategy that needs to come into the equation, but, really like if I just look at my client base, the originators that I have that are still doing okay, and I have a good amount of them that are, I can name, several people off the top of my head that are still doing mid-20s on closed loans a month right now, which is a big number in today's market. What's the common thread of all those originators? Relationships. They have relationships, they've maintained relationships, and their approach has always been about cultivating relationships. And those relationships they're vast, man. Like, yes, you have to have some good solid referral partner relationships that are in those standardized categories like realtors, accountants, financial planners, divorce attorneys, HR directors, blah, 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 blah. I mean, that's super important. You need to have a strategy for nurturing those. You need to have a strategy for cultivating new ones. But then there's the hidden one, right? That it's really not that hidden. It's just people don't focus on their database enough. Like, Dave, when you think about it, it's like how many people are in most originators' databases that are influencers and the originator doesn't even know it? It could be that they never connected deeply enough with them for them to become an influencer in their life, or they never met the other person in the relationship, the spouse that was not the front person on the loan that they did for them, that is the influencer in the relationship. When you go back to DISC, I mean, it's a great tie-in to that, right? Because I think that what you'll find if you did a DISC profile on the average person that is going to take the lead on obtaining financing with you as an originator, they're going to be either a high D or a high C. They're either going to be the dominant personality that takes charge and takes care of all that stuff, or they're going to be somebody who's thorough and analytical and does number crunching, et cetera. But when you look at those two categories of DISC, those two personality types are not typically the influencers. It's the high I's and the high S's that are the influencers because they're the connectors. And when I look back on my career at all of the different referral sources that I had, there were so many of them that were in obscure categories. Like, somebody who I met who was, an HR director for a company and I didn't even know it. And then they started referring business to me, or just somebody who owned their own little mom and pop shop and I refied their whole restaurant. You know what I mean? It's like connection and relationships are key. And one last thing I'll say on that, and then I'll ping pong it back to you, is I just did a podcast episode with a terrific teacher, a great loan originator by the name of Josh Burris. I mean, Josh is a really gifted guy. I mean, he's a leader, he's an originator, he's in charge of product for his company, and he's been rallying his troops. And one of the really cool things that came about in that conversation is they're redefining what the definition of a successful day looks like right now. And I really grabbed onto this topic and I was like, whoa, bro, this is big. Because in the old model, the one that we've been executing on 2020, 2021, our definition of success was locked loans, right? Like you ask somebody, hey, how are you doing this week? They're like, oh, I locked 7 or I locked 11. I mean, that was the definition of success, or being able to be a good leader or being able to provide great customer service. And those that are still focused on those things, especially the locked loans thing, are kind of running into a brick wall every morning going, man, I had a bad day again yesterday because I didn't lock any loans. But what if that were not the metrics? What if that were not the measuring stick of success right now? What if the measuring stick of success right now, Dave, was just how many relationships did I cultivate? How many seeds that I plant in the soil that I know will and that I trust will germinate over the course of time? Because this is and always has been a relationship business. So one of the things that I would play with is a reframe of what a successful week looks like, what a successful month looks like, what a successful quarter looks like, and breaking it down into what are the disciplines and strategies that are necessary to create new, meaningful relationships, with the knowing that the result of that over time will most definitely be a ton of business. The problem with the old model that we were in for, 36 months, and actually you could go back, for God's sakes, almost 10 years we were in the old model, which was some pretty immediate gratification, bro. Like, I mean, it wasn't that hard to get loans, especially the last few years, but even over the last decade. And that immediate gratification is the curse, because we get lulled into a sense of understanding that that is a norm, and it's not. And the loan originator that is a really, truly great originator is the one that actually survives and thrives in a market like this and builds for a better future. And that better future is as a result of having relationships.
Wow. I got some notes from this. So first of all, guys, I think, the cat is out of the bag. The number one priority is relationships. That's not a new idea. There are new tactics to achieve that. There is new technology to help you scale that and do it faster, better, and cheaper. But it's not a new idea. So people, because my role, Sales Boomerang, mortgage coach, I get asked all the time, what's the best CRM? And, it's always the same, the one you use and the one that integrates with Mortgage Coach and Sales Boomerang, because if you want to deliver an amazing experience in education to the consumer, you need Mortgage Coach. And if you want to get signals from your database so that you can actually have relationship calls with folks, technology helps you do that. But, Josh, here was an idea, or not Josh, Tim, this was an idea.
You're having Josh Metal flashbacks right now.
Well, I interviewed him this morning. But I don't know how much you can hear my dog, but they're having way too much fun out there. But what are your thoughts on a couple of new ideas? So in your database, what about tagging the person in the house as the influencer? So like we're more intentional, like, hey, we just talked to such and such, or we closed the loan with such and such, but we actually in our CRM, and by the way, there's some families that aren't influencers. You just know, like,
yeah,
we gave them 5-star service. They're not going to refer us. But once someone refers us, we tag that and we put some intention around that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it starts with having a strategy to make sure that what you're doing, Dave, is that you are connecting with the other person that you're not talking to. I mean, there's a full 50% that's available that most originators don't pay attention to. And I get it in a market when you're moving and grooving and it's smoking busy. I mean, you don't have the time, but in this market, you have plenty of time. So like, what if you just disciplined yourself, as an example, to pick up the phone and call over the course of the next couple of weeks, the spouse that you haven't talked to on every pre-approved buyer you have, and to just use a very simple script. Like, the truth is always the easiest script. I was watching this educational training, and I realized that one of the things that I have not done an effective job of in the past is just making sure that I connect with the other person that I'm not talking to when I'm getting financing for someone who's buying a home. And I want to apologize that I've never introduced myself. I've never reached out to you in the past. And I wanted to just give you a call and say hello and see if there's any questions that you have for me. I'd really love to make sure that you feel very comfortable, that you understand the strategy going forward. I realize that some people don't want to be involved in this part of the things that are happening in their life, but I don't want to assume that. And I just want to see if there's anything that I could do or answer for you. I mean, there's nothing bad that's going to come from that conversation, but I guarantee you this is that you're going to endear yourself to that person by being, humble and having some humility and extending an apology for not having made that call before. And what you don't know is who that person is and who that person could be long-term in your life that you just walked right past with blinders on and never saw that person. Here's another thing. Oftentimes when we lose a deal, when we've got a pre-approval and then we lose it to another lender, a lot of times it's the spouse that introduced them to another lender, but you never talked to that spouse. You never built loyalty with that person. The other thing, Dave, that I think that every originator should be doing right now that I want to hit on is, we're already starting to run into the, 90 days ago was affordability. Okay. And it's still kind of affordability, but now it's back to inventory, right? Like inventory is becoming the issue again. And guess what? If rates drop this spring, we're going to be right back into multiple offer situations. We're already there in a lot of markets. I have an executive assistant that works with me that's lost out on 4 offers here in Southern California in the last 2 weeks. Okay. So it's already happening in certain markets. So the key question is like, how do we help create inventory? I mean, we got to have some strategies to do it. Now, I don't have a magic answer for that because I think it's a tough one, but what I would be doing right now, if I were an originator, is this. I'd be calling 3 to 5 people every single day in my database and touching base with them. You pull the right data. Okay. You look at profiles of people, who has, 3 kids and they're in a 4-bedroom house, who's been in their home for 6 years, who, was a first-time home buyer and maybe is going to want to have a move up situation, and make those your higher priority people. And what I'd be saying to them right now is, I just want to give you an update on interest rates. And, we were all the way up to 7%. Now we're trending into the low 6s, high 5s. And I have really good reason to believe that by mid to late spring, we could be in the low 5s, even the high 4s. Now, here's the great news. Congratulations. I have you from that refi we did or that purchase transaction we did. I have you locked in at, 3.75%. But what I want to check in with you on is, what's your level of happiness with the home that you're currently in? Is this home suiting your needs? Is it something that you feel like you might want to do a remodel on or some kind of an addition? Because if so, I want to watch rates for you and make you aware of an opportunity to take cash out on your home when the rates do come down a little bit more. Also, additionally, do you have an interest in maybe not being in this home in the next year or two, like moving up to something else or moving to another area? And then wait for their answer. And if the answer is yes, then the next question is, look, let's identify a strike rate. Like I kind of developed this term that people have been using a little bit more lately, like a strike rate. Like when this rate hits, we strike. We strike on the refi. You know, obviously, as a conversation you want to be having about refis right now too. I mean, you ask these people also, if you don't have the information from the previous transaction, you take a look at what their consumer credit card debt's at right now. If somebody's got $25,000 or $30,000 in credit card debt, which by the way, it's at an all-time high right now, you need to be identifying the strike rate to consolidate that too. There is a number, and you have the tool in the TCA, for God's sakes, to run the number with them right there and go, okay, look, this is what it would make sense, and put the strike rate in your CRM and let them know, I'm going to let you know when that's available. But back to the selling thing. There are people in your database that want to move, but they can't justify it. They can't justify it because property values have gone up and their property taxes will be higher. And they can't justify it because they're at 3 3/4 and they're not going to take 7. But there is a strike rate where they would be motivated to move. And that could be 4 3/4, it could be 5, it could be 5 1/4, but it's incumbent upon you to identify it. Now, here's where the magic happens. Let's hypothetically say, Dave, that you tell me that, hey, I want to move up, but I need the payment to be no more than X. Okay. Then we back our way into that, figure out what the interest rate would be. You and I conclude, Dave, we need 4 7/8. 4 7/8 is our strike rate. I'm going to watch that for you. The minute 4 7/8 becomes available, I'm going to let you know, and then we're going to get you reapproved, and then you can start thinking about looking at property. But here's the thing. A lot of these people don't have loyalty to their realtor. So this also creates an opportunity for you to introduce them to a realtor as well. You're to list that house, to get them a new house. You're taking charge of the transaction. Okay. We always talk about how we want to be the person that the borrower or the consumer comes to first, so we can drive the business and refer it out. Well, get proactive with your database right now and create those opportunities, and then watch the market and watch transactions fall into your lap when the market cooperates.
So guys, what Tim just said is so important. And I recommend you, if you watch this on YouTube, you play it back. Also want to push everyone watching this. The interview I did a couple of days ago with Phil M. Jones. He is the author of Exactly What to Say. There's a real estate version of it. Tim, you're going to love this. I highly recommend you check it out. Josh is, going to school on it. He's doing a lot of teaching and training around it. But here's the deal, guys. A lot of what Tim said just now, it is scripting for what we're building at Mortgage Coach and Sales Boomerang. And you're going to love this, Tim. Our whole philosophy is that loan officers can schedule their next loan. And when I say schedule it, I don't mean by the date. I mean, schedule it based off of equity, based off of rate. And if you have Sales Boomerang monitoring your CRM, so we monitor every CRM in the industry, that we're literally going to let you know when someone is shopping for a mortgage, when someone looks like a refinance is there, a debt consol, a move up, a life event. And we have rate watch alerts. So Tim, I don't know if you know this, but when the Mortgage Coach and Sales Boomerang have merged, it not only creates that alert, but it creates a TCA. So literally a rate and term refi TCA is created based off of that rates being hit. Or you can schedule a cash out refi or a debt consol refi. And not only does it get the alert, but it creates the actual Mortgage Coach total cost analysis. It's almost like having a digital assistant. By the way, were you aware of that?
No, but that's really incredible. Is it automatically send it out to them too?
It could. So, we're building this new category, borrower intelligence platform. And so depending on, what CRM they're using, how they programmed it, it could either automatically send it out, or it could be set up, hey, give the loan officer a day to finesse it and edit it. Give them an hour. So those are all rules that can be configured within a CRM or based off the company that we support.
One of the things that I want to ask you about as it relates to that, we were actually having a conversation about this on a Zoom call with my L360 family clients the other day. And we're talking about like the difference between, now obviously I have no reference point whatsoever of sending out a TCA with, with BombBomb, a video or whatever embedded in it, and then, getting notified that the client clicked on it and opened it up and watched it and all that. I'm old school, right? So when I used to religiously use the TCA, I'd send it out and then I'd call them and I'd go over it with them on the phone. I didn't even have the benefit of a screen share back then in the day. I was using the brick cell phone when I was calling them. And I was thinking about the difference between the two. And I'm curious about this. Like, what's the pull through rate? Now, I have a client by the name of Giuseppe Padapaglia, who's in Denver, Colorado, and he's a power user of the Mortgage Coach.
G.
Yeah. Oh yeah. G-Dog. Yeah, for sure. Amico.
I've interviewed him
Amico too.
Check out.
Yeah. G's a good man for sure. And one of the things we were talking about in this Zoom call is that he's a passionate believer. And I tend to agree with him that there's no supplement to actually getting on a Zoom call with the person and walking them through it. Sure, you can send it to them with the video, but I still think that you need to get face to face with that person in some type of an electronic mechanism or in person and go over it with them. And here's why. If they have a misunderstanding and you're not there to counter it, then you may lose the sale. If they have confusion and you're not there to clear it up, I think that your batting average goes down. So I'd be curious to hear from you. Like, do you have any statistical data as to the benefit of actually doing it with them live versus sending it in a video?
So all of our statistical data supports that giving a mortgage coach TCA reduces price exceptions, improves conversion. In terms of delineate whether it was they use Zoom in Mortgage Coach, it was in person in Mortgage Coach, they put a video on it. I don't have actual data. I can tell you I've interviewed hundreds of loan officers. And from what I've heard from top producers like Giuseppe and other top producers is there's no substitute to one giving a TCA and one doing it in person. Now I've heard some very successful, still doing hundreds of millions a year producers that are saying, you know what, Zoom, I'm meeting with a lot of my first clients with Mortgage Coach and Zoom. I'll do in person. So I still think in person is probably going to be the highest conversion. But I am seeing a lot of people, the combination of Zoom and Mortgage Coach. And then, of course, just anytime you can put, what I would say, Tim, is the best practice I recommend is multimedia. Make sure that you're giving them the link so they see the graphs and charts, and then something, Zoom, a video with a BombBomb. So it's kind of like this 1 + 1 = 5. Like, don't just give the link +1. What the actual ROI is between the actual one that you deliver, I don't know the answer, but my gut is exactly what you said. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that just kind of makes sense that the more that you're actually connecting. I want to go back to that for a second. Relationship is about connection, right? So it's about finding common denominators. It's about how can you create reciprocity. It's about how can you serve people. Steve Grossman, I know I'm doing a lot of name dropping in this conversation, but I know you know Steve and you've had him on your podcast and stuff like that. Stevie, we were on a Zoom call a couple of weeks ago on talking about networking. And I think Steve's one of the great networkers that I've ever met. And that's how he's built his entire business. And I watch him operate even at our retreats when we're together as a group of people. And Steve just genuinely is curious. And I really want to underscore the importance of that word. I think curiosity is one of the most underutilized virtues that a human being can possess. I think that curiosity right now in today's market is very, very important. I think that you should be asking yourself the question on a daily basis of what am I learning right now about myself? What am I learning about the last 6 months? What is this here to teach me? So I can become better at what I do. So invoking curiosity, because within curiosity is growth and learning. Okay. That's where it comes from, is curiosity. It's why kids grow so fast. You go back to when, your kids were little. Dave, Sid was probably like extremely curious, as most kids are, at why, asking questions, why, and what about this? And, it's that through that curiosity that we grow, and we need to like reharness that quality within our personality. And then the second aspect of it is that if you're curious about somebody, if you're truly wanting to get to know them, you're truly asking them about themselves and how you may be able to help them in some way. And it doesn't have to be all the ways that, we think of, which is that I can help them get another loan, but maybe it's that you could help them with, the need for an accountant. You can help them with the need for, some private tutoring for their kids. The more questions you ask people, the more that you get to know them, the more that you can connect them with other people, which is Steve Grossman's entire strategy. I mean, just so you know, a little sidebar here, just interesting story that I won't go into, but I met my wife because of Steve Grossman. I mean, yes, he connected me with her. She was an IV therapist at one of our retreats, and he was like, I want you to meet Tim. Like, he's just always connecting people. That's why he's so successful in his career. So the thought would be this, kind of bringing it a little bit more full circle, Dave, is like, what are the questions that you could just start on a natural basis asking people and getting curious and learning a little bit more about what their needs are? And what if you were just the person that was always connecting people? Think about what would happen to your business naturally. You would have more and more people looking to reciprocate with you. You'd have more and more people grateful to you. It's not like, busting rocks on a chain gang here. I mean, it's actually pretty easy work. Just getting curious and asking people questions and being of help to them and the service to them is an art form that I don't think a lot of originators are practicing right now.
Well,
and it makes sense, right? Because like, you didn't have time to do any of that shit, in 2020, 21, 19, you're busy, right? But now is the time to connect.
So it's so funny you say this, because this is one of the big takeaways I had from this Bill Jones interview last week. And he's got this exactly what to say. He's got this framework that he calls opening. Well, it's called OFQ, and it stands for opening, a mutually agreeable fact, and then an easy to answer question, followed by a strategic question. And by the way, you interviewed me on your podcast that I know is going to get, put out.
March 1st, it's airing.
Stay tuned, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Tim's podcast is awesome, by the way. In case you don't know what the name, you must have your eyes closed or you're watching this while driving. The 360 Experience by Tim Braheem is a must for all, not just mortgage leaders, real estate leaders, anyone that just wants to achieve at a high level, not only professionally, but personally. I love how you've developed, Tim, and how you've evolved. It's interesting to hear that you actually called out your eye. I never thought it was that low, but there's no doubt your C was higher than your I probably at one point in your career, but it's cool to hear how you've evolved. But curiosity, guys, and strategic questions are the key to creating opportunities. Like, we are in this new era in the mortgage business where I think the loan officers that win the most are not going to be the ones who are waiting for people to call them up and say, oh, I need a loan. They're going to be the ones that are the most curious. They're calling their databases to build relationships. They're going to be the ones that are asking questions in a structured way. Just to watch this interview, but it's opening. Hi, my name's Dave Savage. It's confirming a fact. We help you buy your home at XYZ Street. And then it's asking an easy to ask question. Are you still enjoying your home? Like, guys, that would be an easy opening. And then a strategic question. And I pulled this from Josh because he's working on it. And maybe you go into something like, hey, I'm checking with you because at this point in home ownership, people often find themselves in one of three scenarios. They've outgrown their home. They want to pay off their homes faster, or they want to tap some equity or pay off other liabilities to make other investments. So guys, that was all a strategic questioning sequence that helped you walk into a conversation with clarity and confidence and really open a strategic conversation with a client. So I love that. I love that whole curiosity questions.
Let me comment on that if I can real quick. So first of all, like, just evoking the question within oneself of who do I know or what information do I have that might be of help to this person? it could be a TED talk that you watched. It could be a podcast that you listened to. It could be, a book that you read. Or it could be something much more tactical and specific. It doesn't really matter. It matters that you help them. The more people you help, the more you're going to be successful. And I love the strategy. And I think that's framed up beautifully. And I think you can even go so far as to say, one of the things that I really want to be more of to my clients is a conduit, somebody who can assist you in a lot of areas in your life, not just in providing you with debt management, which is of course going to be my specialty, but I happen to know a lot of people and I'm connected to a lot of really valuable, successful people in the world of finance and business in general. And I want to ask you, is there any need that you have right now in your life that I need to be aware of where I might be able to make an introduction? I mean, listen, even if they don't, you get a lot of credit for asking that question. Okay. But here's the thing I really want to underscore, and where I get a little squirrely with the whole word strategy, because yes, I do believe that you have to have a strategy. There's no question about it, but be careful to not confuse strategy with authenticity, not let strategy override caring. People can feel where you're coming from. And if you're overly scripted and too strategic and too slick and asking these tactical questions, it starts to feel like you're selling me. It starts to feel like you have your own agenda. It starts to feel a little bit claustrophobic, et cetera. Be yourself. Make friends, have fun with it, get to know people. You never know who you're going to meet in this process, and that might be in your life for the rest of your life. I mean, I have a longtime attorney who's been my attorney for 30 years. He was first my client. He's one of my best friends. He's
Silverman.
Yeah, he's still, we're texting with him this morning. We're going to have dinner. I mean, Silverman and I have known each other for 30 years. He was one of my first big clients. You never know who you're going to meet in this business, which is the beauty of it. So, have a good time with it. Have a plan, have a strategy, but don't overscript it. And then the other thing too, is it's just on the I thing, as it ties into this. So just like, I'm going to be super vulnerable with you. I was speaking at Stephen's event about 10 years ago. This is, after I came back from Italy, and I was doing Stephen's event once a year. And I had a coach named James, and I called him from the room at the Palms because I was supposed to go downstairs for the event. And I was petrified, man. Like I was like, I can't go down there. He's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I'm having a panic attack. He's like, why? I'm like, there's so many people down there, and I don't like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm super introverted. I used to have my personal assistant meet me at the end of the stage after those BP events, Dave. And her job was to engage in any kind of a conversation with me, to occupy me and walk me all the way to my room. So I didn't have to be, I didn't have to connect with people because I was afraid to. And I've had to work on that. So I share this because, and I'm not that way anymore, but I share this with you. And I won't go into the rabbit hole of how I worked on it unless you want me to, but like, I share this with the listener because there are people that are listening to this are going to say, but that's not me. I'm not social. I'm not a networker. Connecting doesn't come easily to me. That's a story. And it's a story that can be changed if you want it to change. And yes, you need to lean into a growth edge, and it may be uncomfortable, but there's a lot of potentiality if you do, and a lot of growth potential for your business if you do as well.
So we said we're going to go 30 minutes, and we've gone past that point. But I really feel what you just shared, and I feel like we've unpacked the number one priority. I feel like people got that. It is relationships. It is your database. It is being more strategic with your database. It's ensuring that you've got a borrower intelligence platform. You're monitoring your database. You're giving amazing presentations. But at the end of the day, it's powered by curiosity. And then I also think what you just said, there are a lot of people that, they either don't have the calluses to prospect and sell, or they're more introverted than what's going to serve them in this market. So if you do have enough time, I would love to just unpack what you just said and, give some, high level advice on anyone that wants to be a little more bold, be a little more courageous, and get out there and talk to more people, put themselves out in that way. So I'd love some coaching and counseling on that. And I know our community would love that too.
Well, for me, I mean, I think that there are quite a few things, but I'm going to tell you the biggest one for me that I think made the biggest shift in my personality assessment was I intentionally inserted myself in situations where I was alone. Traveled alone, went away for a weekend to a town in California somewhere by myself. I did this quite often. Went to retreats, personal development retreats in Big Sur by myself. Went to Europe twice alone. Would go to a type of dance called ecstatic dance every Saturday for 3 years by myself. And what that did for me, Dave, was it required me to connect. It required me to become more social. It required me to lean into that fear. I'll never forget, I was coming back from I went to Italy, India, and Amsterdam, Holland, over the span of 3 weeks by myself. And when I was in the airport in Amsterdam coming back, getting ready to jump on my flight to LA, I'll never forget, I started walking through the airport and I started smiling, and then I got emotional and it kind of got teared up. And it was in that moment that I realized I like being with me. Like it was a really cool adventure where I met a lot of people. I mean, when you go away for 3 weeks, bro, and you're by yourself, like it, you have to reach out, you have to connect with people. And that changed everything for me. So I don't have to jump into the swimming pool in the deep end without a life preserver. I'm not saying that, but like just start maybe by taking a full day and just going somewhere and having a cup of coffee and having a lunch and having dinner and just seeing it, sit at the bar. That's another thing I used to do. I used to go to dinner by myself and sit at the bar because you're going to end up talking to people when you're sitting at the bar. And you start to overcome this belief that you're not interesting, you're not social, that you don't know how to connect with people. And it starts to just become easier. But if you hide in your comfort zone, you'll never grow out of it.
So there we go, guys. Don't hide in your comfort zone. This is a year where we need to create better relationships. Another successful habit top producers have, they use video. They're using BombBomb. They're adding the video on MortgageCoach. They're using their mobile phone and doing text video. So whatever that is that you think you could grow and you could be better and you could have a more successful 2023, step out and do those things. So Tim, we've gone a little over, but I want to give you a chance. Any closing thoughts you have, anything you haven't said that you want to make sure folks hear before we wrap it up?
No, just hang in there, embody the mantra that I developed in October and our clients have embodied, which is when somebody asks you the question, how's business? I would really encourage you to respond only in one way, which is, I'm figuring it out. We're figuring it out right now. That's curious, that's open, that's expansive, that's evoking learning and growth, because that's what we're doing. We're figuring it out. If you're figuring out a new way to do business. And as long as you stay in that energy of I'm figuring it out, you're much, much better off than, oh man, my pipeline's low and I only have 2 locked loans and I'm really nervous and I'm really scared. I mean, that might be your reality, but be careful about the words that you speak. And remember, we're just figuring out, we're going to get through this. Rates are going to get better, but there are certain blocking and tackling things that we talked about in this call and many, many more that we didn't talk about that need to be executed on for you to be successful going forward.
A couple minor questions before we close. One of them I know the answer to, but I know you're super passionate, excited about your podcast. Why, by the way, the camera's amazing. The mic is amazing. This is a super quality recording on your part. Why did you decide to start podcasting, and what's your vision for your podcast?
So Jay Voorhees, who is a client of mine, told me 8 years ago I should do a podcast. And I didn't even know what the hell a podcast was, so I didn't execute on it. I wish I would have. I wish I would have listened to him back then. And then finally, a super important person in my life said to me about a year and a half ago, he said, Dad, my son Trey, he said, you really need to have a podcast. And when Trey told me that, I was like, okay, like the universe is speaking to me. I've had two people tell me now, and I really respect my son's opinion. So I decided to give it a shot and see if I'd like it, first of all. And I actually really love it. Like the format is enjoyable for me. I get to have long form conversation with somebody and just have fun. And the best part about it is it's just really valuable to people. It's helping people. I'm getting a lot of feedback from people. I mean, we go for, and some people say, oh gosh, it's an hour and a half or 2 hours. You know what? It's an hour and a half or 2 hours of really good content. And we need to go that long to really give you the tactics and specific things to think about. So where do I envision it to go? I want it to be the #1 podcast in mortgage space. And I want it to help a lot of people. And I want it to help them not just in their business, but the reason it's called the 360 experience, Dave, is because everything we do is 360 in our coaching. It's all of life. It's your energy, your relationship with family, your relationship with yourself. I mean, so I love having guests that aren't just mortgage specific, but we have plenty of great originators on the show that go really deep. If I can add one thing, is that if you like the show, when you watch it, everybody, please subscribe. I know you hear this all the time from podcast hosts, but the more subscribers I have, the better the guests I can get. Like, so I can reach out to people. Like, there's a guy, like as an example, that I want to have on the show named Steve Sims, that I think because I think he and I would have a really fun time together. I just got done reading his book. Sosi gave it to me, but like I got to get the subscribers up. So then when I reach out to somebody, they're like, okay, you have a legit podcast. You're not just one of all the other ones that are out there that don't have a lot of listeners. So that would be helpful, and I just love helping people. So it's been really fun.
No, I love it. I am gonna, I've been doing a version of podcasting now for 15 years, but I need to make it podcast centric, so that it's easier to consume. But I love that you're doing it, Tim. Can't wait to see our conversation air. And hopefully by the time, we do our long form conversation, that will be well over an hour. And who knows, guys, could be one of those, we could try to compete with Joe Rogan and go 2 hours.
We're going to definitely be drinking wine if we're hanging out together. There's no question that's happening while we're doing the show, for sure.
Well, hopefully I'm going to have you down to my house and we'll drink some wine together and we'll podcast together. So my closing question, because you are in the Mortgage Coach, Sales Boomerang community, I feel as a founder of Mortgage Coach that it's never been more important that loan officers deliver a total cost analysis. But what's your thought on that? I mean, I know you recommend it, but do you feel like in this market we have with all these lower rates, it's even more important that loan officers deliver that experience to consumers?
I'm looking at you like with a weird look on my face, because I can't even believe you're asking me this question. I mean, I've felt this way for almost 25 years now, since I first started using it, was in beta. I'm like, if you're not, I tell every one of my clients this. I had like 3 clients on retreat in Costa Rica in December that weren't using the Mortgage Coach. And I looked at them like, have you been drinking or something? Like, what are you thinking? I mean, you have to use it. I mean, if you don't use it, and I've said this a million times before, it's like, if you're not using it, then you're just putting yourself at a strategic disadvantage. I mean, it's absolutely essential and critical to your sales presentation. I mean, you have to use it. And anybody that says, well, like, I don't know, like it's too complicated for me, or my client, I've heard this before too, my clients are going to be overwhelmed and think it's too complicated. Listen, you're lucky I'm not doing loans right now, because if I was competing against you, you would lose to me every time because of the TCA if you're not using it, because I personally found that it completely separated me from my competition every time at point of sale. It's why my batting average was so high.
So Tim, you have been just an awesome friend, an amazing change agent in the industry. And like I said, and I opened this, the service you did as a loan officer, being a founder of Loan Toolbox, now coaching, mentoring, and podcast, you make the industry better, brother. So thanks, appreciate everything you do. Everyone watching this, guys, if you got value from this, give it a like. Please, if you have not already, subscribe to our channel, so that every time we drop a new video into the YouTube channel, you get a little heads up that came. Tim Braheem, I can't wait till our next one, brother.
High five, bro.
Yeah, no, Knuckles.
And Knuckles, nice. Yeah.
All right, guys, this is
Thanks
a
for
wrap.
having me.
All right, hope everybody got value.